Now to the story that's leading our bulletin this hour. The fire in the Parliamentary precinct has begun again after firefighters managed to contain the blaze yesterday. A fire gutted the National Assembly and severely damaged other parts of Parliament on Sunday morning. A 49-year-old suspect has since been arrested and charged with housebreaking, theft as well as arson. Our reporter Monique Mortlock is following that story and joins us live. Monique, we understand the fire is still raging. Do the firefighters look like they're making any progress at this point?
That's something we'll have to find out from the City of Cape Town's Fire and Rescue Services. We'll get an update from them in the next 15 to 20 minutes. From where I'm standing, the fire is still raging in the National Assembly. But to give us a bit more insight, I'm speaking to Moloto Motapo, who's also been here since the early hours of this morning along with us. Moloto, what do we know about how this happened?
Well, we do not know. I must say that we have been caught by surprise. It's quite distressing, it's quite devastating. However, I must indicate that at the time that we were briefing the media about 2 hours ago, the issue of the high temperature inside the building, trapped inside the building as well as the smoke, was flagged as a risk factor. And therefore, one can actually sort of link this sudden re-emergence of the fire at the top of the building of the National Assembly to that situation. However, as you correctly say, we will wait for the firefighters to give us a briefing as to what is the reason behind this sudden flare-up and if indeed what they told us before has anything to do with it. So we don't want to rush to conclusions, but of course it's a very distressing situation. This is a serious setback to the great efforts and the success that the firefighters has registered since yesterday. However, we continue to be encouraged by their resilience, their courage, as well as the brave manner in which they continue to fight this fire and to bring it under complete control.
As someone who gets to call Parliament almost the second home, what is your concern when you see these flames?
Well, at this time, we don't even want to think of our emotions because, you know, it will be just too ghastly to contemplate. Because as I'm looking at what is happening now, I see my office that is that I've worked in for the last 5 years since being employed by Parliament going down in smoke. We had hoped that the offices of the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Deputy Speaker will be spared. But given that this fire now is directly on top of these two offices, we are not sure if whether they will be saved on time. So it is quite a very sad, distressing, quite an emotional moment, because some of us, we have known Parliament for the past 15 years that I've been here, beginning with my employment in the African National Congress. And to see it today going down in smoke like that, it is not a very easy situation. But like I'm saying, we don't want to think of our personal emotions. We have got a work to do.
Thank you very much, Moloto Motapo. And as I leave you, I'm going to ask my colleague Crescendo Low to show you the scenes that Mr. Motapo is talking about there when he says that he's just watching his office going up in flames. And we heard a little earlier or this morning from the ANC's chief whip, Pemi Majodina, also talking about how their own offices, the ANC's offices, were also damaged, and they were concerned about some documents there, some equipment there in those offices. And right now you can just see firefighters continuing to spray with that hydraulic platform, spraying water on the flames. A little earlier we heard from the City of Cape Town's Fire and Rescue Services that the void sheeting of the roof had collapsed, and right now we're just seeing that those flames just seemingly continuing unabated. And really, this is what we've been warned about by the City of Cape Town's Fire and Rescue Services. We also heard from the Public Works and Infrastructure Minister, Patricia de Lille, telling us that this is still a volatile situation, that the temperatures inside the National Assembly are as high as 102 degrees Celsius. Yesterday it was peaking at about 400 degrees Celsius, and it's for this reason that fire forensic teams by the Public Works and Infrastructure Department. Engineers haven't yet been able to go in to assess the extent of the damage or to really quantify how much the damage may cost. But we heard from the City of Cape Town's JP Smith earlier this morning that it could be in the millions, if not $1 billion rand, when we're looking at the historical value of what has been lost already, and the architectural value as well. I'm just going to ask my colleague Crescendo to stay on those visuals so that viewers can see just the extent of this fire and what firefighters are currently dealing with.
Monique, I didn't get to ask you the question a bit earlier around any incidents insofar as the firefighters are concerned, because when the building caught fire, we're not quite sure if there were any inside at the time.
Apparently, those employees who were still here at the Parliamentary precinct or around the old wing, they managed to get out. Some even managed to grab a couple of items when they first saw those flames. And one police officer this morning actually remarked that it's quite incredible that no one was injured, or no one has yet been injured.
Yes.
And that includes the firefighters, because what's different about this fire and a wildfire is that you're dealing with bits of a building that's likely to fall on you. That structural integrity is now so vulnerable, and this is something that we've heard throughout the day, even when the media, this is during the briefing, when there were no flames, when things seem to have died down, even when the media asked the Minister and Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa-Qakula whether it would be possible for a couple of us, even if it's a few at a time, just to get some visuals of the inside or get a bit closer to the building, we were given an emphatic no, and that was for our safety. The officials told us they themselves, the ministers, haven't even been able to get any closer because they haven't yet been given that all clear, due to the fact that there were still embers smoldering, and that at any moment what we're seeing right now could happen. And it's exactly as Moloto Motapo was saying, that while we were speaking about this during the briefing that not too long ago, about 2 hours ago, shortly after that, a half an hour, 40 minutes after that, this is what you see happening, those embers just flaring up again or reigniting thanks to the wind as it changes direction and picks up. These are all the factors that the firefighters have been taking into account over the last 48 hours, not 48 hours, sorry, 24 hours. And this is what we've been warned about, and now we're seeing it for ourselves.
So I take it they're only using the aerial hose at this point and not allowing any firefighters into the building as yet.
That's what it looks like from the vantage point where we are. We know that there are 34 firefighters on the scene. The City of Cape Town's Fire and Rescue Services told us that they will be staying on the ground, and the only way that they'll declare this a safe area is if all the embers have died down, is if what you're seeing right now couldn't possibly happen. We can see that there not only the hydraulic platform which is coming down right now, but we see hoses on the side of the building as well. Firefighters trying to get to the fire on the other side, or to the flames on the other side of the building instead of directly on top. So right now it doesn't look as if firefighters are going in and just trying to tackle what they can.
Sure, this is honestly unbelievable. But just to take you back, Monique, to the speaker during that briefing a bit earlier, she raised a very pertinent question of the passage between the old building where the fire reportedly started and Parliament. There seemed to be a lot of concern around that matter, where there was no damage, extensive damage between that passage. Just talk to me about that part.
Yes, it was interesting that she herself has these questions that many of the media themselves have, and these are the questions around why is it that if the fire started in one part of Parliament in the old wing, that it could have jumped. It seems as if it may have jumped because there was that part, as you mentioned, that seemed to have been left unscathed. And this is really what we are hoping that will come out of the preliminary report that Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Patricia de Lille spoke about. She said that that report should be ready by Friday and that they will be keeping the public and the media abreast of developments, because this is a national key point. It's important for South Africans to know what is going on, how it was possible also not only for this fire to break out, but for anyone to be able to get close enough or to get onto the parliamentary precinct for this to have happened. And there were various security mistakes or blunders that were touched on, like the CCTV cameras that were seemingly not being monitored. That's what Minister de Lille was saying. She said that she will be on the scene a little later, back here, to come and see for herself what is going on, because after that briefing and after the presiding officers and the minister met with the SAPS, everyone thought, right, we in the clear for now. Things seem to have died down, and all eyes were just on tomorrow when that 49-year-old suspect who was arrested, when he's expected to appear in court. And now everyone is back here. The ministers are on their way again to assess the damage and to see what's going on.
Mm-hmm. You know, I know that the minister as well as the speaker have all spoken about perhaps not casting or sort of jumping into conclusions about what has happened here. They've actually asked for calm or a call for calm. But now that the Nahau situation has been clarified, that in fact there was no policy which would see that some of the personnel would not be working on that particular day, particularly holidays as well as weekends. Now that that's been set aside, there's also another question, though, around the coincidence, though, that on that particular day, it seems that either people were sleeping on duty or they were not present. So that level of a coincidence is something worth discussing. Do you really think, or we're going to see a situation here where there could be some sort of collusion?
And this is something that we asked the speaker about, and I was careful in how I word it so as not to cast aspersions or to speculate, as we've been warned against by the presiding officers. I asked whether the suspect that's appearing in court tomorrow, whether that could be the last person that we'll be seeing being held responsible, whether if the investigations find that there was indeed a lapse in security, whether there was indeed an officer, whether it be a security officer or an SAPS member who was found to have not been doing their duty, what will happen to them? Will there be charges brought against them? Will they be held accountable? And the speaker was very clear in saying if the investigations find that there are other people, whether it be one of the officials or an authority, whether it be a member of the Parliamentary Protection Services or the SAPS, if it's found that anyone else may have been responsible or could be held liable for what happened, then the necessary steps should be taken and will be taken against them. So yes, this is something that was touched on by not only the speaker but the other MPs who were present at the briefing, and the speaker was clear that there will be accountability, but again they were just calling for the public to allow the investigators to do their jobs, saying that this is a multi-agency, they're taking a multi-agency, multi-pronged approach to this investigation, and that includes the Public Works and Infrastructure Department sending a team of engineers, which consist of chemical engineers and electrical engineers, to come and assist or to come and assess what is going on. Right now, though, as you can see, no one has been allowed in yet. They can only do those assessments inside the building once they've been given the all clear.
No, Monique, thank you very much. It's honestly very difficult to conceive that this could be the work of one single individual. This is serious damage, but we'll most certainly keep up or keep in touch with you as the story develops.